which is this part here, and we have the right cerebral hemisphere and we have the left cerebral hemisphere. See how I look at it in an anatomical position, right? So this is right and this is left. This is the cerebellum, this little thing right here, okay, that extra part, and then below it you can see the spinal cord, because sitting here, this is right here how it would sit, okay? So the cerebellum is going to be right back here, this little indentation, that's where the cerebellum sits, okay? And then, do you see this right here? Look, it's going to fit right there in the middle fossa, and then this is going to come up right up there. Do you see these things right here? Those are those olfactory bulbs. They're going to fit right in there, okay? So the pituitary gland actually drops down from the infundibulum, which is this right here. So that's where the pituitary gland would be coming out of, and that would be sitting right there in that little place. These here, coming off of here, would be the optic nerves. If this was the infundibulum, do you see how those optic nerves would come right out and go right through those canals? Pretty cool. So this here is the spinal cord. You can see how it's smaller, right? And then it comes up, and this part of the brainstem is called the medulla oblongata. This extra little ridge right here is called the pons, and then this part would be called the midbrain. So we have the spinal cord, the medulla oblongata, the pons, and the midbrain. These here are our optic tracts, and coming off of here are our optic nerves. Okay, they cross. So one optic nerve would go like this, and the other optic nerve goes just like this. The space right in the middle is called the optic chiasma. These here are the olfactory bulbs, and these are the olfactory tracts. A tract is a bundle of nerves, so passing together. So the olfactory bulbs are sitting there, and they get that information, and then that's called the tract that's carrying it into the brain. Look right where it's carrying it, right in here. Now here we have the optic nerves that are going to come in, and they're going to cross. And as they do, on the other side now, it's called a tract, right? Because it's carrying those bundles of nerves. So when I take the sagittal section, okay, that would be like cutting it just like this. So I'm looking at the left hemisphere, the left cerebral hemisphere. So I can see the cerebellum here better, okay? Look at this arbor vitae. That is called the arbor vitae. This is called white matter, okay? This stuff right here is white matter, and we'll talk about that a whole lot more when we get into the nervous system, but white matter is the path of nerves, okay? So these are these are axons and dendrites that make this up, and we call this the arbor vitae, and arbor vitae stands for tree of life. So a lot of times our nerves here look like that. This here is part of the cerebrum, okay? So down here, what did we say this was?
Spinal cord.
Spinal cord. So do you see this part right here? That's the medulla. Can you see this little bulge? That's the pons. If you look at it really carefully, you can see the difference in tissue and the type that it changes. Can you see right here how you can see the pons right there? Now we have 4 ventricles in the brain that carry fluid. We have 2 lateral ventricles that are going to sit right here in either side of the cerebral hemisphere, and they're called lateral ventricles. So we have a right lateral ventricle and we have a left lateral ventricle. Then they drain into the 3rd ventricle, and then it drains into the 4th ventricle. So underneath this little flap is one of the lateral ventricles. There's a little tissue that goes right between the two to keep them separated, and we call that septum pellucidum, and that's what you see right here is that tissue. If you look on this one, there's nothing there, and so this is a lateral ventricle as well. And inside the ventricle we've got real important stuff as well, which you guys don't have to know, but there's lots of cool stuff in there. And so then it's going to come through, and if you look very carefully, right, so here's the ventricle, you'll be able to see, you can't see it very well on here sometimes, you can see it getting into the third ventricle. This here is the third ventricle. No, this here is the third ventricle that they call it, right there. Because the fourth ventricle, you can see it more here. It would be right in here. Here's the fourth ventricle, right here underneath the cerebellum. Can you see that little space in there? You can see the tissue on one side. See that tissue? If it wasn't cut, and I put, you can see it here again. See it right there? You can see it really well right there. Can you see that tissue? So it makes a space in there. That tissue would make a space. And then from there, it would travel right down into the center of our spinal cord. The central canal that you've heard about, where we have cerebral spinal fluid. See, look. Right there. Okay? So this fourth ventricle drains right into that hole. So you can see all of this would be the third ventricle, or fourth ventricle. The third ventricle, if you look, you can see the little space right up in here. It would be this. We don't do a whole lot with you guys in here, so we don't have to worry about, right there it is. You can see it on that one. You can see that tissue where it would be. That's been cut a little bit. Okay?
So what is that?
That's the third ventricle. So we have two lateral ventricles, we have a third ventricle, we have a fourth ventricle, we have a pons, we have a medulla oblongata, we have a spinal cord, we have a midbrain. This is the cerebellum, right? Or this is the cerebrum. This is the cerebellum with the tree of life. My brain is going faster than my mouth. I apologize. So coming here now, we're looking at this way. Here we have the spinal cord. This here is the medulla. Here we have the pons. This is the midbrain. These here are the olfactory bulbs. So the olfactory tracts are right here underneath it. Can you see it? What's this covering right here?
Dura mater.
Dura mater. Okay, this is what we call dura mater. We will dura mater, or mater, but it's mater. It means tough mother. You see how tough that is? That's what dura mater stands for, is tough mother, and it is a tough protective covering right there. These here are the other parts of our optic nerve. Remember the one I told you that they were sitting there like this? So here's one, here's the other. So this is an optic nerve. Okay? These here are our really big trigeminal nerves. You can't miss them. Look how huge these are. These are nerves. If I was to look here, they would attach right here, and they've been cut off. You can see them here. These are trigeminal nerves, right? These are optic nerves coming out of here. Here's an olfactory bulb. What is this structure right here? Pons. What is this structure right here? Spinal cord, right? Well, you can call it either way. What is this back here?
Cerebellum.
Cerebellum. Now, there's one other nerve you guys have to find. What is it? I know you have to find the olfactory bulb. I know you have to find the optic nerve and the trigeminal nerve. There's something else.
Oculomotor.
Is it the oculomotor? Has anybody found it and thought like it was really clear for you guys? There it is. Can you see it? Coming right off of the top of that midbrain. Normally you can see it on each side, but it's been cut. Yep, there's two, one on each side. We'd have to take that out of there, so that would be a good one right there. How would I tag that? Carefully is right. So that's one of the problems that make the brain hard. It'd be easy for me to tag this one, right? Because they can't miss it. It'd be easy for me to tag this or to tag that or to tag any of these. But to get into there, I'd probably have to lift it up like I did the phrenic nerve and then tag it like that. How many of you got the phrenic nerve right?
I got it right. I did.
How could you not look at it? I pulled it back out of the way.